here today. Okay, first of all, I'm going to tell you a little biblical story here that happened in Mount Olivet Lutheran Church in Minneapolis. The 8-year-old girl came to church one morning and Pastor Callan was teaching. And she said to Pastor Callan that they had read the Old Testament the night before. And her mother stated that Jonah was swallowed by a whale. And Pastor Callan said, that can't be. He said, anatomically, a whale can't swallow a man. And she said, well, the Old Testament said it. My mother said it. It must be true. So the minister said, well, the little girl said, when I go to heaven, I'll ask Jonah. And the minister said, what if he goes to hell? You ask him. All right. There's one little item I want to tell you about. Happened to me in December. I was playing, unfortunately, I play a little bridge. Most Norwegians can't. It took me a long time to learn it, but I'm getting a little better at it. Got a bunch of 80-year-old guys teaching me how to do it, so I listened to them. So anyway, I was playing bridge one day, and I got a little hungry for lutefisk. You know, they advertise lutefisk at this restaurant in Edina. So I saw a sign that said, serving lutefisk today, so I went in there and ordered lutefisk and squash. Came squash and my potatoes, white potatoes, and I didn't have any akavit that day. They don't serve booze there. So I was sitting there minding my own business, eating my lutefisk, and all of a sudden the owner came up to me and said, do you mind if this gentleman interviews you about lutefisk? I said, what do you want to know about lutefisk? So he sat down with me and across from me, and I said, where are you from? He said, New York Times. I said, really? Well, that's good. So he was raised, the writer was raised in the same type of community that I was. He was raised in a small Norwegian community in Washington. So we started asking about lutefisk when I developed a taste for it, and I told him that I was from Roslyn, South Dakota. And he said, that's the hometown of Myron Florin, isn't it? He knew about Myron Florin. So then we went on talking about lutefisk, and I said, lutefisk to me reminds me of a gift. When we would have lutefisk at home, I could smell the lutefisk, and I knew after we finished our meal of turkey, lutefisk, and dressing, we'd have gifts. We'd open gifts afterwards. And he said, I felt the same way about it. So we interviewed, and he asked me what I did for a living, and I said, I'm a mortician. And he related in the article that I'm an undertaker. And he said this soulful undertaker sitting, like I was dressed in black that day. In fact, I had a white shirt on that day.
Today.
Yeah, like today. But he made the article sound like it was a real sad occasion, which wasn't. It was a happy occasion. Because I was eating lutefisk. So we went on to visit for about 45 minutes. And I said, where is the article going to be? And he said, it's going to be in the New York Times. I said, when? He said, Christmas Day. And I said, where's it going to be? He said, oh, it might be on the back page somewhere. I thought it'd be in the hidden ad somewhere for funeral homes or whatever, obituary notices. So I got up that morning, and I went to my computer, and I picked it up, and it was a front page lead article of the New York Times for Christmas Day. So then I ran to the nearest store to pick up copies, and they heard I was in the New York Times, so it was gone. Most of them were gone, so I only got 3 copies. So then that next day, I was going to California. I flew out to California to see my brother. And CCO had called to interview me, but I wasn't there to be interviewed, so. But I got to California, and I went to a party that night, and all these people at the party, 45 people at Warren's party, and said, are you Alan Vevang's brother? It was in the Sacramento Bee, it was in the San Francisco Times. In fact, the one woman got up in the morning and she looked in her computer, it was in Norway, it was in Oslo.
Hey, I can tell you a story.
Okay.
Our friend in Henderson, Nevada, who's a Norwegian from Brooklyn, she gets a newspaper from Norway, and there it was. It was from a Norway newspaper.
Yeah. But I took offense to the fact they called me an undertaker, you know. An undertaker's all right, but. Can I tell this real quick joke here? I don't know if it's off color, but it's a nice joke. Anyway, we went on a call in Minnesota about 5 years ago. We went into an old farmhouse that was built probably in the 1880s, 1890s, and the doors were real narrow. So we couldn't get the removal cot in through the door. So we also had a little portable cot, and we couldn't get that in there either. So I went in the room, and this little woman was laying there in bed, you know, deceased, and I looked at her, and I said to my friend, only thing I could do is put her on my shoulder and carry her out. So I got a black suit on. But anyway, she soiled my black suit. I said, if you do that, you can walk. Okay, enough of that.
Yeah.
Want to hear any more Undertaker jokes?
We were just a warm-up team for this.
That was a warm-up, okay. Okay, now, I want to get into some basics here.
That's pretty basic.
One day, you know, the Jewish fathers always say, my son, the doctor, you know? So my dad always said, my son, the mortician. That was kind of nice that Dad said that. When I wanted to go to mortuary college, Dad said, you're crazy. He said, you can't do it. And I said, why not? He said, it's too difficult and you don't have any money. I said, I'll go in the Navy, I'll get some money. So that's what I did. So anyway, that's why I became what I did, which is not much, but I'm here. I'm here. Okay, another thing here, I went into Edina one day and on a death call, and we always have one funeral director go in first to see where the person is, where the deceased person is. So I walked in the front door and I looked over to the left in this room. He had a lot of signs on the wall. Burma shave signs. Don't laugh now, this is a true story.
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
So I looked at the signs and I said to the woman, the wife, the new widow, I said,
Now, can you imagine Alan being a serious mortician?
I'm not crying, just a lot of fun. But anyway, she said, well, my husband's the owner of it. He owned it. He was the man. His Alan Odell was his name. A-L-L-A-N, unfortunately. A-L-M-A-L-L-E-N. So he was upstairs, and I went and brought him back to the funeral home, and I did all the preparation and had the funeral. And she gave me a tape here about Burma shave. We used to read Burma shaves on the way to Aberdeen all the time. But I couldn't read fast enough, so Darla's read them. And I could read the Burma shave sign. That's all I could read.
That's because you're driving too fast.
Yeah, right. No, Darla's was a gifted student. I was 10th in my class, but 11th in our class. That was a 10th. So anyway, let me read a little bit here. Well, first I'll tell you a little Burma shave deal here. Within the veil of toil and sin, your head grows bald, but your chin, use Burma shave. And past schoolhouses, take it slow. Let the little shavers grow. Burma shave. There's that. Then I got a tape here. We don't have the ability to. Well, there's my dad right there. Okay, this has been fun so far. I'm going to read this to you. When I arrived at the Odell residence, I asked his wife if they were involved, and she told me. And he passed away early in the afternoon of May 1995. Burma Shave was a family-owned company established in 1926. Alan Odell was the owner and the driving force in his sign advertising. The first 6 signs were placed on a highway southwest of Minneapolis, which was Highway 65, and presently is 35W. Okay, the company was totally broke in 1926. They didn't know what to do. So the father of Alan decided to sell some stock in this fledgling company. So in 3 weeks, they sold 29% of their stock. In the first year of business, after they put the signs out throughout the country, they put 6,000 signs out, they raised $68,000 in income. So after that, they built a new plant in Minneapolis in 1940, and they never exceeded 35 employees, and all the employees stayed with the company for many, many years. In fact, their main employee, their best employee was Fidela Dearlove. She was a nice woman, I understand. And the men that placed the signs on the in the highways, off the highways, are called PhDs, post hole diggers. Harvey PhD, aren't you? Postal digger, right. I never got to that point. Okay. So anyway, the signs, in 1968, they sold it to Philip Morris. And the big corporation came in and they thought they had all the answers to everything, which they usually do, and they don't succeed. So they took the signs down, and after the signs were taken down, the business kind of dissipated and went down to nothing, and they closed it down totally in about 1969. And many of us in the Navy used Burma Shave, and Burma Shave's ad were considered the #1 ad in this country to this date. That was the #1 ad that produced money in this country. And when the Burma Shave signs were put up in the farms, they paid them $5 to $10 per year. That's all they paid them. But the farmers got on an honor roll and they became part of the family. They sent them a newsletter and everybody had an enjoyable time being part of Burma Shave. So it was a very successful company, and Grace, the wife, was one of the nicest women you'd ever meet. Just a nice, friendly woman, and she came in to make arrangements and she wanted to touch my hair, and I said, you can't.
Everybody wanted to touch Alan's hair.
Right. All right, now going on, this is Elmer here. Now we're going to talk about the barbershop. Are you getting bored yet? I'll leave here. Come on. Okay. I've been here, more than I should be, but anyway, this is Elmer. Elmer, my dad, was on the farm. He went to Moeller College, Barber College in Minneapolis, and one day he was working on the farm, working in the barn, doing things you have to do in the barn, the gutter, I guess, whatever. And Jake Shad came out. And Jake came to Dad and asked if he'd like to be interested in barbering in Roslyn. And Roslyn didn't have a barber prior to that time. And I think there's a little barber shop over by the school now. Is that right? Did somebody cut hair over there? Yeah. Okay. But Dad was the only barber they ever had here in Roslyn. So Dad started barbering in 1925. He was 24 years old. He was born in 1901. And he bought the little shop. You remember the little barber shop? For $400. And Dad barbered until 1950. And we moved to Moorhead. A lot of people ask why we moved to Moorhead. And my sister wanted to become a nurse. And as you know, looking back in Roslyn, we didn't have chemistry, didn't have biology. We had driver's training and economics, but not. Anyway, Roslyn's a good school. So we went to Moorhead, and Darlis graduated from Moorhead and went on to nursing. She became a nurse through Swedish Hospital. Then after 2 years, we came back here to Roslyn, but Dad only worked in Fargo for 6 months. He didn't like working for somebody else. Being a Norwegian, it was hard to do that. You know how that is, Franklin, stubborn Norwegians. So anyway, he came back here and he barbered until 1989, and he broke his hip. He was moving the car for Mother one night, broke his hip, and that was the last he barbered. And he lived from 1989 until 1994 he died. So Dad was a very good, kind-hearted individual. He never took issues. He'd been a Democrat. He never argued about politics or anything, and he got along very well in town, and he walked to work every day. And Dad was a good, kind man. And one day I came home in 1961 with a little MG, a little sports car. Some of you probably remember that, a little MG white car.
With the spring door handles.
You're right. And Dad said, can I use your car one day to go to Pierpont and barber? I said, yeah, you can use my car, no problem. So we got in the car, and I'll never forget the sight going down the main street here, Dad driving, could barely see his head. And the wind was blowing his little hat, vibrating. So he went to Pierpont. He barbered in Pierpont for 16 years. And Dad, dealing in dollar bills, always had a lot of money in his billfold, which probably had $20, but looked like a lot more. So he always said, well, Alan, I'll look at all the money in my bill, but don't tell anybody. Dad always said that, don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody. That's the way Dad was. Okay, Warren and I decided to will the shop to Webster Museum. Some people in Roslyn weren't in agreement with that, but we thought we'd better take it and send it to the museum because we wouldn't be able to take care of it here in Roslyn. So Baldy Beatty was instrumental in getting the shop into Webster, and we repainted it about 4 years ago, and they barber probably 2 days a year in there. I think one of the barbers from Webster goes in there and gives haircuts for different charities.
Tony Wicca.
Tony Wicca barbers in there, right? And anybody's got any questions? Say anything about Dad's barbershop, Dad?
You know, what was amazing was that he spent those, how many years did he barber?
I barbered from 25 to 89, so how many is that?
64 years.
64 years,
With
right?
his hands above his shoulder, or waist,
Yeah.
and he was still in good health.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, just amazing.
I always think about, Alan, how wonderful your father smelled.
Oh, did he
I
really?
mean, powder
Yeah.
and, stuff that most
Did he use Old Spice? What did he use?
most farmers didn't
I know he
use. And
But he had that big mirror in the shop. You had to watch himself grow old over all the time. And I never liked to look at that because my hair turned early in my life. So. Anyway, really, talking about one more thing here about hitching. One day in about 1944, I got up in the morning and it was a heavy snowstorm. And the snowstorm was over about 8 o'clock that morning. And 15 teams were tied up behind Buck's Steinbuck over here, the shoe shop. 15 teams were lined up there against the hitching post, all over that backyard. And I said to Mother, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a picture of that? We never took a picture of it. But we used to hitch them all the time, and Johnny Bugon would go out there, and Warren was his favorite hitching partner. Warren would pick him up, and then he'd come back again. And a lot of them would throw a blanket over us when we were on our sleds and try to help us along a little bit. And we used to listen to The Shadow on the radio. And I ordered a ring, the glow in the dark. It had a black eye on it, a cat's eye on it. And I kept going down to the post office and said to the postmaster, is it here yet? Is it here yet? Finally, after about 2 weeks, it came in. So the day I put it on my hand, I got on this, put it on my hand and said, geez, this is great. So I was hitching all day that day. And I kept looking at my ring. So I had a lot of fun that day. So Mother used to tell all the ladies that came to town, tell the ladies what you've been doing this summer, Ellen. Well, we used to catch frogs. We'd sell a few of them, but I'd take a straw and blow them up. If you throw them in the water, they couldn't dive in. So. That's about it. Anybody got any questions?
Alan,
What?
I don't know if you've had a personal thank you, member of that board in Webster, and we would really like to thank your family for donating that. It's been a wonderful addition to the museum. All of you people should go and see this. You Roslyn people that frequented it, it's just exactly the way it was the day he closed the door.
And the smell will bring the memories back.
And the smell will bring the memories back. It's really a treat to have it there. And thank you very much.
Well, who made that pole in front? There's a big, beautiful wooden pole in front. Who made that?
I think Alfred Munso did.
Okay. We had a, go ahead.
I have a question. They mentioned they bring cream to the creamery and frogs to sell.
Yeah.
Why? What were they selling, or who was buying, or why were they selling frogs?
Johnny Hansen, we would
Frogs
catch
down across the street.
We would catch frogs and we'd take them to Johnny Hansen. We got 35 cents a pound, and we'd pull grass out and put them in the little cage deals, and they'll water it. They'll throw a little water on it, and they would take those big bullfrogs and sell them. They'd go to Chicago for frog legs.
And if they're small, they would for bait.
Yeah, but they love frog legs in Chicago.
You sold too many. There aren't any left.
Well, Duane caught more than I
We
did.
got them all. We didn't leave any breeding pairs, I guess.
But the only problem was there was moisture on your hand after you caught one. I didn't like that part of it.
You had to get used to that.